Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everybody. I hope you're all having a really positive day so far. And just want to say big thank you to Anita for inviting me to be here today. I'm going to be delivering a talk on all things social media and COVID. So I'm just going to hopefully check that everything's going all right. If anything's not working seamlessly, do let me know. Pop a little message in the chat function. Say hi. Let me know if you're watching and where you're watching from. That would be brilliant. I'm going to grab my presentation up now and get going. Anybody who doesn't know or hasn't met me before, doesn't know who I am, my name's Natalie Sherman. I am director and founder of Naturally Social. We're a social media agency based over in Corsham, and we work specifically with charities, third sector and not-for-profits. So let's get going. And just big props to Anita for starting the event, doing this event online this year, because obviously last year or a couple of years ago, in-person event, last year, wasn't it? It was such a fantastic day. And yeah, to kind of move all this online, given the kind of current circumstances, is no easy feat. So you should be really proud. Okie dokie. Let's get sharing. Oh. If anybody wants to tweet about the session today, our handle is @NLYSocial. Come on, Natalie. There we go. Is @NLYSocial, and the hashtag is #UpgradeYourSocial. So do drop us a line, send us a message, a tweet, let us know what your thoughts are, or if you've got any questions afterwards. We'd love to hear from you. I couldn't have done a session really for this conference and not reflect on the last year really, and how being in lockdown has really changed the way we use social media. And that's really what my my kind of pitch to Anita was, that we focus on today. As I said, my name's Natalie. I'm the founder. I've been running the company for about 7 years now. I've been working in the social media space for 10 to 11 years. And I'm an accredited trainer for Facebook and Instagram as part of the She Means Business program. And pre-pandemic, I would probably say that interest in social media use by business was growing. There was realization that they needed to be using it, but they probably didn't know how to, what to do, or whether it was worth it. Ultimately, they were what we found was that marketeers and business leaders were either experimenting, investing, or avoiding it. And for many companies, organizations who were investing or experimenting, we were seeing very similar outcomes or outputs in terms of content. And that's where we kind of come into our own. We train companies, we train staff, we consult, and we run strategies to make sure that social is being delivered well, and that it's delivered in line with your overall strategy. But this is kind of stuff that we were tending to see. A lot of content was heavily sales focused. It was very formal. And there was this approach to kind of posting every single day. Didn't matter what it was, how it was said, what the point was at the end of it. But, you know, it was tick the box and an objective to make sure content was going out every single day. So that was kind of pre-pandemic. And, you know, we were still trying to convince people of that ROI, I guess. Also pre-pandemic, these were kind of the main channels that people were seeing. So a lot of people we were talking to a lot of people who were using Facebook, a lot of people using Twitter, a lot of people using LinkedIn, some people using Instagram, either personally or professionally. And that's where people were really hanging out. They're the kind of the main power players. Despite the numbers and the realization that people were using social media, and for those who were experimenting, there's still a lot of uncertainty around the value. And I get asked a lot, what's the ROI of this? What's the ROI is going to be? And without trying to employ scare tactics, I kind of like to use this quote from a chap called Gary Vaynerchuk, who's brilliant in the social media space and a real role model. But he'll always say, the ROI of social is that ultimately your business will still be here in 5 years' time. And that just sums up the sheer size of this way of communicating and the impact that it has. And social media has been an essential part of everyday life since long before any of us heard of COVID-19. As I said, that is the impact. And, I started using Facebook in 2007, but way before business pages were a thing. But we started using it because we realized that, our customer, our community were hanging out there and we wanted to start experimenting. So yeah, it's been an essential part of everyday life for you and I since any of us heard of COVID. But then the 23rd of March came around and the UK went into lockdown. And as a direct result of the pandemic and subsequent lockdowns, social media usage in 2020 actually grew at the fastest rate in 3 years. And get this, there are now more people using social media across the globe than there isn't. That's 4.2 billion users worldwide are communicating on social media. And this is really where that tipping point of social media usage was spurred on by COVID. Since January 2020, as I said, there's been an increase of not only users but active users joining social media of about 13%, and a whopping 98.8% of users access social media via their mobile phone. So if you're not thinking mobile, if you are online and you are using social and you're not thinking mobile when it comes to content creation, that's one thing that you have to start considering. How do you build content around the mobile experience? When it comes to UK relevance, 66% of the UK's population are on social media. That's roughly about 45 million people. Now, despite the movement towards self-care and time away from the screen that we saw in 2019, which was a huge discussion point, the pandemic actually saw individual screen time increase on average every day, with users spending roughly 1 hour 50 to 2 hours on socials every single day. This call for a digital detox pre-pandemic was due to the negative impacts of social media on mental health and wellness. But the pandemic flipped this because for many people, it became a social lifeline. Throughout 2020, 57% of users said social media made them feel less lonely. Social was connecting us. It was bringing us together. And for many, it was our only connection to the world outside. This study here, it was done by Global Web Index, and they surveyed, a baseline of UK and US internet users about 2 months into the pandemic, and these were the results. So as I said, it was bringing people together. New sites were popping up all the time, which we'll come on to. Things like Clubhouse, TikTok, Snapchat even gained some more usage. House Party, if anyone heard of that. And now, on average, UK social media users have about 7 accounts across different platforms. Downloads for video conferencing apps rocketed, as we know. I just mentioned House Party there, but they experienced an all-time high in March 2020 with 50 million sign-ups in 1 month. That's 70 times above the normal markets. Facebook's fastest growing demographic throughout 2020 were those aged 65 plus. And in January 2021, Instagram were at 31 million users in the UK, up from 24 million just the year before. Clubhouse, 600,000 active users in December, and in January 2021 grew to 2 million in just a month. It was crazy. And I think social media during the pandemic could be summed up by the word escapism. We were looking for a way to connect to people that we could no longer see or speak to, but we were also looking for that normalization and that relationship and connectivity with people, escaping from that day-to-day doom scrolling that we refer to in terms of just looking at news and what was happening. So with that surge of video downloads, video app downloads, things like Zoom, etc., we saw moments like these: interviews on the BBC, screenshots from meetings going viral. Hilarious, and I'm sure you'll all remember these throughout the pandemic, pretty much early on. But it was thanks to moments like these that actually public pressure to portray an unrealistic image was reduced through the pandemic, meaning that people felt, and users, younger generation as well, particularly felt they could be themselves and share more authenticity, posts that weren't necessarily perfect. And I think that call for self-care and downtime on social in 2019 that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, the user behavior has flipped that on its head, because we had to be real, we had to be authentic. People weren't looking for that perfect post because we weren't experiencing anything. So actually we all turned to just talking and connecting again and showing our the vulnerability in our lives, and that everybody's human. And you can't plan for your child walking in the background of your really important meeting or BBC interview, rushing around. Should have checked what was on your shelf before you went on BBC Today, because normally you might have had film crews out there, but you've now having to do it through internet connection. But there was also a sense of relief, I guess, in the silliness of it all. People have used social in the last year or so to keep themselves educated and entertained, and it's really been about bringing people joy. When we look at TikTok, super important for the younger generation to see people that they love and aspire to be like. So celebrities, Justin Bieber, for example, all using social media in a way that's transparent and authentic. It's not polished, it's real. And that helped, as I said, to reduce that pressure to create the perfect post. But yeah, TikTok was fascinating. Supermodels were on there. Courtney Cox was on there. American singers that are just launching their careers, and UK singers just launching their careers. J-Lo set a what they call flip the switch challenge. It just created this phenomenon of all ages, so all demographics grew massively on this platform, and it was all about transparency and a sense of realness. But within that, it was also bringing us together. And the brands that were quick to react ensured that their investment in digital comms escalated. There was a special COVID-19 edition of the CMO survey, which I'm very happy to share the links to, that found social media had become critical to marketing during the pandemic. No surprise. For us, what we saw happen was about 3 weeks of stillness, and us driving the approach to our clients, saying we need to communicate this, we need to start sharing this message, go into crisis mode. But for those who were looking to invest or kind of new inquiries, there was a sort of stillness for about 3 weeks or so whilst everybody got to grips with going, okay, what do we do from here? Where do we go? And then that realization that all this technology was available to them, that they had to use it if they were to stay ahead in their game, or to just keep communicating both internally and externally, actually. And that's when everybody was talking about Teams, Zoom. We got fascinated with Zoom backgrounds, didn't we, for a while there? And socials, Twitter, Facebook groups, all that interest started coming through when we realized that digital and web was the only way we were going to be able to communicate with each other and our customers during this time. But this survey it kind of reported that social media spending had increased from about 13% of marketing budgets in the February 2020, and then it grew to about 24% in the June, so about 74% lift. But spending on traditional advertising decreased, obviously, and had actually projected to still decline. And those companies, as I said, who are investing, they are seeing huge returns on their social media investment, according to this survey. People's social media strategies were contributing upwards of about 25% to overall company performance on the previous year. So yeah, I think those people who kind of started jumping on that and restarted investing will continue to see the results. But how does that user behavior that I've just discussed and the brand marketing element, so brands using social, how does that all fit together? Well, researching products to buy is still cited as one of the top primary uses of social. About 28% of UK users conduct brand research across all platforms, and more than 3/4 of the world's social media users report buying something online each month. So if you're not using social media, you're not being discovered. But there is a huge change in what users now want to see from brands. As well as the latest products and deals, users want to know more about brand beliefs. They want to buy from brands that support the same causes as they do. For example, I think that there was a survey by GWI that kind of said 47% of all consumers expected brands to display support of the Black Lives Matter movement across their platforms. And I think by the nature of experiencing what we have globally around the pandemic has defined that and really shone a light on the need to have some good CSR about companies. And so I think when we look at the charity sector, that's a real positive. You know that people are looking to explore brands, businesses, online, but they're actually looking for people who affiliate with a cause. So for you guys, it's an opportunity for you to partner with companies to ensure that those companies supporting you have good social media strategies in place, and that you have discussions about how your social can support each other, because it's good for the brand and it's good for you. If you can find local influencers, they don't need to be huge influencers like Maisie Williams here with The Body Shop. That's an extra tactic for you to have moving forward here, is to tap into those influencers in your community who can help to spread your message in their online platforms. And finding people who care about the things you care about are really important, because that's what the users are looking for. They're looking to see what causes people care about and support. So we looked at, with that in mind, pre-pandemic, we talked about what we were seeing were a lot of sales posts, daily posts, just for the sake of it, and a real formal approach to writing content. Post-pandemic social media really needs to be focused on sharing of shared values. It really needs to kind of encompass that authenticity of your brand and your brand voice, and be transparent about who you are, what you do, and what you care about as well. And video format. Video format is super important. It hasn't gone away. We're still talking about video format when we talk to clients and we advise people. And I think the rise of things like TikTok in particular, and the introduction of, as such, Reels onto Instagram, it is really pushing the agenda for video format. And in fact, all the algorithms prioritize video content even more, because they know that's what users like. So you must integrate video into your strategy post-pandemic. But it wasn't just about the video. It wasn't just about the video trends and the TikTok and the funny dances. We saw the launch of audio trends on social media. We've all known about, I'm sure, about podcasting and the kind of value of that. But with the launch of Clubhouse, which initially launched in April 2020, it's since attracted 10 million weekly active users as of February this year. And with that growth, it's really shone a light on the production of content on social in a different way. It's not just about, people don't just want to respond to text. People might be getting a little bit fatigued with, posts with pictures, moving towards TikTok and really seeing the silliness in that. It shows that we want to consume things again in a very different way. And we shouldn't forget that audio is a very powerful method to sharing your message. As I said, podcasts, immensely popular. What Clubhouse has done has brought that element into shorter chunks, smaller bites of content creation into one targeted place. If you're not familiar with Clubhouse, it is basically characterized by allowing users who have an account to jump in and out of chat. You listen and talk to people, but you just can't see them, ultimately. Conversations aren't saved, and you can't then leave the app halfway through kind of hosting them. A great deal of its popularity, I don't know if you attributed... start again. I don't know if you realised that Clubhouse was an invite-only app to begin with. So they created this expectation, this excitement around it, exclusivity around it, and that really drove a huge amount of interest in it. And as such, I think really powered that huge growth that we had in February and at the end of last year. But the fact that it is just audio based attracts a lot of users. There's a lot of people actually that I talk to who are worried about video content creation. They get scared, they cringe at the thought of live content. So I think actually introducing a trend like this really actually makes it more accessible to many, many more people. A lot of people ask me, do we think that that Clubhouse is going to go away? Is it going to be one of those fad channels that's kind of there and then it's gone? And I don't think it is. We can see that Facebook on the right here on this slide, they have rolled out audio rooms, what they're calling it. So they're bringing that audio experience into the channel. And Twitter brought in Twitter Spaces very quickly as well. So the fact that other channels are now kind of caveating and mirroring, I like to use other words than stealing, the essence of what Clubhouse does. That really does show that it's not going away, and there is definitely room for it in strategy. And I also think, for me, as a trend perspective, it shows us that we need to think about how users are consuming content and how we can make that work for us. That's not really a new message. 3, 4, 5 years ago, I'd be telling people, don't just get onto Facebook because that's what you're used to. Go to where your customer are. So, considering the right channels is really important, but the introduction of something like TikTok, something like Clubhouse tells us how users, individuals, customers, consumers, supporters, how they're interacting on social media now. We have to bear that in mind. And it also gives us a way to share our message in new ways, in new formats that are going to be preferential to different people, which will support us in marketing our company or brand moving forward, particularly if you've got people in your organization who have a lot to say, a lot to share, but are a little bit camera shy, let's say. So, looking to wrap it up then, I wanted to leave you with 6 pieces of advice, 6 tips for you to go away and how you can adapt your strategy and how you can move forward post-pandemic using social media. First and foremost, I'd really encourage everybody to experiment. It's not a waste of time experimenting on social, and unlike other marketing channels, some things like print, for example, it's a very forgiving place. And if you've got Snapchat one day and 2 months later you've had to take it down because you don't have the resources and it hasn't been working, that's okay. But experiment with new channels. Think about features that are being introduced on existing platforms. They're there for a reason. For example, Instagram Reels provides you guys a new channel to deliver short form video. And that is a trend that's swept the internet no end. Facebook has stickers that you can gift card to small businesses and share money and buy coffees, etc. You can support charities online through story content on Instagram. TikTok launching business versions of their app. These are all examples of features on existing platforms that you can experiment with. These new tools provide an opportunity to build a unique connection with consumers, and they associate their discovery of these features with the brands that first use them. I used to tell or share in my training, like, early adopters always win, and that's quite a controversial message, I think, for marketeers, because I know a lot of marketers who say, don't experiment, sit back, wait and see what happens, then go in on it. And once you've understood it and you can see you can learn from how other people are using it. But I do think innovation wins, and you have to be the first to utilize these sorts of things, these features, because, as I just said, that's when your customer, your supporter, how they will remember you, and you'll be the first that they think of. And any social media strategy should include a process for identifying new features and channels and quickly creating content for them, even if that is attending conferences like today or seeking training or listening to your own podcasts, is really important. Number 2, make sure you integrate social media into your overall marketing strategy. If the two are at the moment independent, you must bring them together. As social takes center stage in this post-pandemic marketing world, it really does need to integrate seamlessly with your broader marketing strategy. It is a current bright light, but it needs to align with your other activity, and the team should be working together. Invest in top talent, and this could be seen as controversial given the current recruitment in kind of state of play at the moment. But it is really important that you invest in talent to deliver your social media strategy. We're being asked to deliver a whole host of different things, writing, our skill set, copywriter, graphic design, customer service, reputation management. The role requires so much. Paid ads, managing a specific budget just for social media content, influencer marketing. Really think carefully about how you fill that position. Inexperienced social media managers can be detrimental at worst, but have a huge positive impact on your company goals and charitable expectations on the other side of that. Harness the power of influencers, tap into those influencers and creators. We haven't talked much today about influencers because I wouldn't say it's a trend that's been pushed to the front through COVID. I think it was always there previously. But I know that a lot of people will see the benefit of, or if you're on these platforms, you will see the importance of using influencers because they're the ones that are sharing, your friends, your children, your clients, etc. Will be talking about seeing these influencers online. Influencers don't need to be huge celebrities that cost a bomb. An influencer is somebody who has influence over your target market, who has a community of engaged followers that could influence, and that person can influence that community with your message. And my kind of advice there is to do your research, to have a think about who's local, regional, national, if you can afford it, who can create good content for you. Research them, have a look at their content. Does it fit in with your morals, your ethics? Is it on brand? And then reach out to them and go from there. Considering the right platform, number 5, considering the right platform for your brand. I know I said it, I showed you earlier just a fraction of choice on social media at the moment. And during COVID, 2, 3, 4 new types of content as well as channels popped up. And for many, that leaves you going, where do I go and what do I do? But taking the time to understand the audience, the message, the resources, and how you could be creating content on these new platforms is really important. Brand building is the top use really for social media. And consumers, in the GWI survey I've been referencing throughout this presentation, consumers indicate that a trusting relationship is most important to them in a brand, beating low price, product quality, or even innovation in that industry. So it's really important to consider when you're using social media and you're picking the right platforms, how that platform could impact the consumer's perception of your brand. And lastly, I'd encourage you all to think about adapting your content to the times. It's important for us to keep creative content relevant whenever it is, but specifically right now during COVID, whatever that looks like for you. I've seen content being shared over the last year from companies portraying large indoor gatherings, which was completely irrelevant and old and, just insensitive, to put it lightly. But on the other end of the spectrum, there are many consumers I know out there, many users who are actually fatigued from content that centers around COVID. So to resonate with our followers, we've got to find that balance. How do we share content that's relevant to now, but also is moving towards that business as usual and getting people to engage with us again? So to summarize that, post-pandemic social media, make sure you're experimenting with those new channels, features, etc. Integrate social into your overall marketing strategy. Make sure you're bringing those people together, see how social can work with all your other activities. Invest in talent to ensure that your social content is the best it can be. Tap into influencers if you haven't already, particularly in this really noisy space. Go to where the conversation is happening and influencers are holding those conversations. Make sure you consider the right platforms for your brand, and adapt your content. Be sensitive. And that is everything that I've got to share with you today, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to stop sharing my slides in a sec. These are our social media deets for you. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok. Yeah, we are at NLY Social. That's my direct email address there, natalie@naturallysocial.co.uk. Please do reach out. I mentioned at the beginning, but we do offer social media training. For some, outsourcing to an agency isn't always affordable. We do work on campaign basis, but we also provide mentorship. And, with everything that changes so frequently, it's really important to invest in that learning opportunity for you and your staff. So thank you very much. I'm just going to flip back on to the Hopin app once I come off my presentation and see if you've got any questions.
A big thank you to Natalie for this morning/afternoon's presentation. We're saddling times here, aren't we? But lots of pointers and really useful tips. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all get really social in the coming weeks and months. Natalie has a profile that she set up as a speaker within Hopin. So if you want to connect with her on LinkedIn, please do that as well. And do check out Natalie's socials and how Naturally Social does use social media and get some tips from that. So great to see you all. Thank you, Natalie. Take care. Bye.